So this is one of the many incidences that have happened, but it's one that I remember so well. It has always been in my mind, and I've explained it over and over to other people. When I was in 6th grade, I went to a new school because we moved, and the school was just closer. I was 11 years old, and at one point, one night, there was a school dance at a different school, at a different elementary school. And for some reason, I wanted to go. I don't know why. School dances were not my thing, and I didn't even know, I was not comfortable with a lot of people at my new school. There was a lot of bullies, there and whatever. But of course, there was definitely one bully in this whole situation that was the worst, obviously. And that was my abuser. But yeah, so anyway, I wanted to go to the school dance, and I was taken to the dance. And I was dropped off at the entrance. I'm taking my seatbelt off. I look over at her, and I go, okay, bye, I'll see you I don't remember. I think it was going to be like a couple of hours, 2 hours maybe. And she says, okay. And I get out the door, or out the car door and into the school doors. And I'm going to check in. I say my name, and I don't really know what else is going on. But as I'm just strictly focusing on that, I'm not paying attention to any other surroundings, and I'm in the middle of a conversation or waiting for them to give me a bracelet or whatever it was that was going on, I feel a hand grab the back of my shirt and pull me so hard. It was such a hard jerk. I don't mean like a little, oh, hey, to get the attention of your deaf daughter, right? It was a jerk. It was like when you are getting ready to have a fight with someone, and you're just taken on by surprise and you want to punch him in the face. This was a jerk, and I turn around. I already knew what it was going to be. I turn around, scared out of my mind, and I see my abuser looking at me and screaming at me. Not a talk, which if you're going to pull, yank an 11-year-old, you know that it's not going to be like that. And I'm being yelled at so loudly. Names are called, and I'm being accused of not saying goodbye and, all this other stuff. I just left the car without saying anything else. And just imagine that you are an 11-year-old girl, short, and you're just minding your own business after you already said goodbye because it was acknowledged and you left. And so many people turn over and stare because it is so loud. The screaming is so loud that obviously the people literally right next to us are going to hear it. But also people in the room where the actual dance is being taken place. And it's just a whole lot of screaming from her, and I'm saying, yes, I did. I'm probably crying at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm saying, yes, I did say goodbye to you, and you said goodbye to me, and, I really don't remember the rest of the conversation. It probably went the same as any other conversation that goes on, and at some point, she finally left, and here I am, standing there, freaking out, because not only did this happen, another abusive situation happened, but it was in public with so many people looking. And of course, did anyone actually do anything? No. Everybody stood and watched, and that was it. While I'm being pulled and my arms are being grabbed and whatever, and being screamed at in my face. And once she left, there was a guy that I actually knew from my other elementary school, the one that I went to first, and he comes up to me and he's just like, what the heck was that all about? Like, wow, she's crazy. And that's pretty much all I remember that happened. But yeah, absolutely nobody did anything. They just stood and watched and essentially allowed that to happen. A grown woman screaming at and hurting a 11-year-old kid. They just let it happen and they watched. And unfortunately, that's not the only time that has happened. I recall other times, being at Walmart or Kmart and, being pulled, hit, and dragged and hurt in front of all these people, and nobody does a single thing. Names have been called, swear words, slurs, and everybody just kind of sits or stands and watches. And that hurts. That hurts a lot. It still hurts, to be honest, obviously, because it's just like, do you know how that can... Well, there's always a risk of people getting involved, you know, if it may escalate to something later in public. It may escalate to something later in private. But at the same time, it's like, when people are standing and watching, you're thinking, wow, this person that's actually doing things to me doesn't care. But now all these other people that are watching and letting it happen, they also don't seem to care. If you ever see something like this in public, I do encourage you to, if you can, attempt to put a stop to it. I know that there is a risk involved and other people may not like having that risk involved. You know, they're scared that something else is going to happen later. It's a very complicated situation, but at least for me, I would have liked if somebody else had cared, because everybody else in the immediate family didn't. That's just a little description of something that happened. If you haven't, consider pledging on Patreon. You get perks like music playlists, written pieces that don't exist anywhere else, and pen pal letters if you go up high enough. And I will see you later. Bye.